Like when Fox News kicked off Tucker Carlson and replaced him with some bozo, I'm the bozo. So I'm here today hosting Lakes Area Tea Party. I don't have any jokes for you, but I do have something for you tonight. So I know we all know that history is controlled. There's so much fake history out there these days, so much that they are put out there that is just completely false. But luckily, because of social media, there is accurate history that is out there, and a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump. He's more of a historical figure than you realize. A lot of people think that Donald Trump first got into politics when he became the President of the United States, when he came down in the escalator, but that's not true. He actually was the king of Africa. He was the king of Africa, yes. And we know Donald Trump, he built the wall. He loves building walls. But sometimes you have to tear down a wall. Like when Trump tore down the Berlin Wall. Yes. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about Martin Luther King. Glenn Beck will say Martin Luther King was a Republican. The Democrats will say Martin Luther King was a Democrat. But I do have definitive evidence now that Martin Luther King was a Republican. They marched together in Washington, D.C. Yes. So Donald Trump, he's built a lot of great buildings, a lot of marvels. But perhaps the best one of all was Stonehenge. Yes. Now, Donald Trump, he has, he used to call out Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas, and that issue was very important to him because he knew Pocahontas back in the day. And Donald Trump, we cannot discount Donald Trump's pop culture impact as well. He's a huge pop culture figure, from The Apprentice to when he was the original member of the Beatles. We've heard a lot about Taylor Swift. She's everywhere these days. But where did she learn how to make music? Donald Trump. That's where. And also, Trump is also a great inventor. We've seen the movie. I'm sure a lot of us have seen the movie Oppenheimer about developing the A-bomb. Who came up with that technology? Donald J. Trump. Another great invention for Donald Trump. People talk about, the best thing since sliced bread. Well, who created sliced bread? Donald John Trump. So, yes, these memes are from a great account on Twitter called Trump History. They have hundreds of them, so check that out. Trump History, really, really good stuff. Awesome. So, and now I also want to give a shout out and a thank you to our team today, Marge, Vivian, Dar, Kathy. You all do such a great job. We couldn't have this great meeting without you. Oh, and Mindy, yes. Mindy. And Ken Garner, yes, thank you. So yeah, they all do such a great job, and that's why we have such a successful tea party here, going back almost decades now. So we've been doing great work. Moving on to our speakers, we have recall campaigns that are active in two races in this area. One is against Representative Noah Arbit. He is the far left Democratic liberal who represents the Commerce area. He was the guy who voted he voted against the anti-pedophilia amendment when the so-called LGBT civil rights bill came up. Vehemently opposed the anti-pedophilia amendment. So that kind of shows you how left-leaning Noah Arbit is. He's getting recalled, as well as Kelly Breen of Novi. She's the rep here, also another far-left extremist. So we're going to bring up Herman Barbie and Daniel Lawless to talk about this recall effort right now. So come on up, guys.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Herman. I'm a precinct delegate, West Bloomfield. Noah Arbit is our representative in House District 20. Much more than that, but yeah, obviously that was the tip of the iceberg. So the Michigan Hate Crimes Act, he authored that, co-sponsored, co-wrote that one. That passed the House at the end of June. Not law yet, thank God, but basically you mispronounce someone, you go to jail. Time to recall this guy. Good news, Noah Arbit just sent me an email. He's having a town hall this Wednesday morning at the West Bloomfield Library. Who wants to go? I know I do. So that is actually happening. So West Bloomfield, 10 a.m. 10 a.m. West Bloomfield this Wednesday morning, November 15th, 10 a.m. The website is recallarbit.com. Recallarbit.com. We've got about 5 weeks to go. We are anticipating we're on pace, hopefully. And we got a new texting campaign we're going to be starting up pretty soon. And any questions really quick, because I have to go to another meeting.
How do you spell Arbit?
Arbit, A-R-B-I-T. NoahArbit.com. Say again?
Sandra.
Oh, yes, sorry. And then, sorry, thank you. Sandra in the back. Look, everyone look in the back. There's Sandra.
But be careful that you don't sign unless he is your rep.
Yes.
And I mentioned that in groups and good people get mixed up.
Correct. So this is for Michigan House District 20 specifically. This is for West Bloomfield, parts of Commerce Township, Orchard Lake, Sylvan Lake, part of a sliver of Bloomfield Township, and that's the majority. The majority is West Bloomfield. Outside of that, please make sure when you are signing a recall petition, please make sure everything is 100% legible. Very, very important, very careful when you're putting down information. And Sandra's in the back. She has petitions if you guys want to circulate. There's also some hand cards as well. It's got Noah's beautiful picture on there. You can hand that out and make you vomit. And we'll go from there. Next.
I'm Daniel Wallace. I am heading up the recall of Kelly Breen here in Novi. We finally got approved by the Board of Canvassers last Monday, so this is day 8. And Kelly Breen, if you don't know about Kelly Breen, she's sponsored bills to make late-term abortion legal and mandate taxpayer funding of late-term abortion. She has a bill to allow runaway children health care, including sex changes without parental consents, and a whole other list of things that we have, and we just want to get rid of her. She is one of the most liberal members of the House of Representatives, or the State House, as it is. I was moved earlier during the invocation. We were talking about fighting the fight and fighting that battle against the left, against the demons and the satanic following that they have. And I look around this room and I see 100, 150 people. All here, we're training to fight that fight. But we need to go out there into the battle. We need you not just to sign the petitions, but we need everyone in this room to pledge to gather petition signatures, whether it be for the Arbit recall or for the Kelly Breen. We need everyone to gather 2, 3, 4 sheets of petition signatures. We have the data. We can send you to certain doors. We can have you go to churches. We can have you go to Hobby Lobby or gun shops to collect. But we need everyone to take personal responsibility to collect these signatures. This is the only way these recalls will work. So we have Miss Teresa in the back corner there. She's going to have a sign-up sheet for volunteers. And I will be back there. So if you are in Lyon Township, Novi, Farmington Hills, you can sign the petition. But everyone else, we need you to sign up to circulate petitions. We need a couple hours of your time once a week for the next 4 to 6 weeks so we can get both of these recalls over the goal line, okay? If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Well, thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Trejo.
If you are going to be, going to Thanksgiving, and you do have like a lot of conservatives in your family, feel free to take a sheet of petitions and get them signed at the dinner table. But you probably got a lot of liberals, unfortunately. But it is what it is.
On July 4th, our Independence Day, the American Freedom Law Center filed a lawsuit in federal court in Washington, D.C. against President Obama for engaging in unlawful executive action that violates the separation of powers principles enshrined in the Constitution.
Since 2000, he has been dedicated to defending religious liberty, the freedom of speech, and the right to life in state and federal trial and appellate courts across the country. In 2012, Robert Muise, along with a partner, founded the American Freedom Law Center, a national public interest law firm dedicated to fighting for faith and freedom and defending our Judeo-Christian heritage and moral values. Through his work, Mr. Muise has appeared on national television programs like The O'Reilly Factor, The Kelly File, Hannity and Combs, Freedom Watch, Fox and Friends, The Glenn Beck Program, and others. He joins us tonight to discuss how the left is abusing the power of government to target and suppress their political opponents. He'll discuss the American Freedom Law Center's case against Attorney General Merrick Garland, the Michigan electors case, and all that Trump and his allies are facing. So come on up, Mr. Muise.
Close, Muse. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Hey, excellent presentation, Doctor. Thank you. We and I need to talk after this. I don't do personal injury cases. I might be doing personal injury cases though. It's been not just with the COVID. You got all this gender reassignment stuff that's going on. It's crazy. I've been battling the COVID stuff for years. I mean, it's not the topic of my talk, but I want to kind of begin just mentioning that. You know, and I've said time and again, you know, the COVID wasn't a public health crisis. It was a constitutional crisis, in my view. I mean, we lost so many rights during that time. I've had lawsuits, multiple ones, against Gretchen Whitmer, against the governor of New York, the mayor of New York, governor of Pennsylvania. I've got one that's still surviving, the one against the governor of Pennsylvania, and we'll be doing a cert petition in the Supreme Court for that. It's you know, the courts take so long to rule on these issues, and every time I sued Whitner, she kept moving the goalposts. Right, all that order's done. Let's move on to the next one. And then the judges are like, well, yeah, it's moot now, so you can't go on with it. So it's been quite a battle, but it's going to get worse. This is all going to come out. I think there's going to be too many people harmed by all this that something's not going to take place. And you know, they built in so many immunities for themselves too, and that's a big issue. And I like the idea of somebody challenging that, you know, the immunities on 5th and 14th Amendment grounds. Just Con Law 101, the equal protection under the 5th Amendment applies to the U.S. government. If you have equal protection against a state actor, it's the 14th Amendment. So that's probably why they bring it under both. So I work for the American Freedom Law Center. Our tagline is fighting for faith and freedom. Is that working the right way? Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the weaponization of government. And I know everybody in this room has seen it. Some have felt it in very real ways. It's lawfare, and for the government, for the most part, you know, the process is the punishment. Yes. Right? They know full well what they're doing. I always like to remind this quote. I'm never tired of repeating time and time again. You know, Ronald Reagan reminded us that our freedoms weren't handed down to us in the bloodstream. They must be fought for and protected, lest they're a generation away from extinction. We're getting pretty darn close to that, right? We're getting close to that, but we got to fight. I mean, that's the thing. If you don't exercise these rights, they're going to atrophy like your muscles. So everybody here needs to be ready to stand up and fight as necessary. You know, my colleague made this point, and it's so true. Right now, we are in a non-kinetic civil war. You know, it's just you can't not, you know, read the headlines, see what's going on in the news, and not realize that that's true. I pray that it never gets to kinetic, right? But we are on the brink of something that I've never experienced. You know, I spent 13 years in the Marine Corps defending our constitutional rights against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I became a lawyer because I was more concerned about the domestic enemies and what was going on here, rather than either North Korea, Soviet Union, you name the enemy that we were fighting at the time. All right, so I took an oath to defend that. I'm not a big fan of lawyers. I tell people all the time. So I usually describe myself as not a lawyer, but a Marine with a law degree. So that's how I approach stuff that I do. Right, this is what we're facing. This administration, the Democratic Party, they're communists, and I agree with the lady who did the remarks up here. This is a spiritual battle. If you don't understand or view this in spiritual context, then you're missing the boat on what actually is going on here. And you know, we need a lot of prayer. God has blessed this nation, but I don't know how much longer that blessing is going to go. But we've got a lot of problems in the administration. But it didn't start with just them. I mean, when you want to talk about weaponization of the government, to me, this was the poster child who got it rolling under the Obama administration. You still wonder who's pulling the strings right now behind the scenes with the Biden-Harris administration. I don't know how many of you remember this 2009 Department of Homeland Security assessment. Right-wing extremism, current economic and political climate fueling resurgence and radicalization and recruitment. Do you remember when that hit the press?
Yep.
Yeah, and who are the two of the main culprits of the right-wing extremism? They were those in the pro-life community, those promoting the pro-life movement, and military veterans. Right. This is how it's all. This began really a lot, in my view, the weaponization of the government against conservatives, and that's what it was about. This guy, he's the champion. As bad as Holder was, I think Merrick Garland has outdone him. He really has. It's that's kind of shocking to say. You probably I have a lawsuit against him, and I said, parents, we filed this lawsuit on behalf of a group of parents from Saline, Michigan, and a large group of parents from Loudoun County, Virginia. Right. Now, if you remember and just a little background of how all this started, right? These domestic terrorists, these parents who were speaking out at school board meetings against this, progressive agenda that they're trying to jam down the parents' throats, and raise the parental rights issue. Got us a governor in Virginia. So there's still a lot of fight back on this. But what's very interesting on this issue, the National School Board Associations, right? They wrote that letter to the White House, and actually, as was uncovered by the House, some members of the House Judiciary Committee, that letter was written in cooperation with the White House. That letter became the pretext for what Merrick Garland was soon to do, and that was issue that infamous October 4 memorandum, targeting these parents. And it's interesting, even the lawsuit, they said, well, we never really called them directly domestic terrorists. But you worked on that letter in conjunction with the NSBA, and only some of them, just the progressive wings, because there was actually quite a few conservative members of the National School Board Associations who threatened to pull out of the organization if they didn't pull that letter and apologize, and they did. Yet Merrick Garland didn't make any changes on that, and he was even asked that during testimony. And his testimony said that letter was the only basis for him actually issuing this infamous October 4 memorandum. But it got even worse than that. Because it wasn't just a memo, he had the FBI actively involved. They created these threat tags. These threat tags for parents to conduct these investigations on people who speak out of school board meetings. And, and again, I kind of laugh when the government was, in their opposition briefs, were saying, well, we never really consider them domestic terrorists. But yet the two organizations that the FBI, who were doing these threat tags, was the Criminal Division and the Counterterrorism Division. So tell me, what are they doing? Right, if you don't consider them domestic terrorists. I just argued this case before the U.S. Court of Appeals for D.C. Circuit on September 22nd. As you can imagine, I had a very hostile panel. Does anybody know what court that Merrick Garland came from before he went to BAG? That one. Yeah, the U.S. District Court for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. But as I tell people all the time, I think one of the best philosophers that I tend to follow is Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? These people need to know that we're awake, we're watching, and we're willing to punch them in the chops. We don't always get the best results in court, but they need to know that we're here, and they need to know that we oppose what they're doing. Amen. And so this, wait and see what the decision comes down, but it's not going to enter the D.C. Circuit. We'll go to the Supreme Court if we need to. You can't attack American people. Use the powers and the levers of government to the way this administration is doing it. And it's not just them either. Look, go wrong way again. Well, that's one of our parents that we're representing from Loudoun County. Alicia Brandt. You see all these rabble-rousers of domestic terrorists. You know what they're doing in that picture? Singing the national anthem. Yeah, so they got fired up. That was a good group of parents that really got something moving here on this parental rights issue. So we can keep pressing that. This is another one that more recently, right? Traditional Catholics, which I am one. I attend Latin Mass, right? And this was the FBI assessment. You probably saw this one come out fairly recently. This is from the Richmond. They describe now these traditional Catholics, such as myself, as racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists. They have an acronym for that, RMVEs. and radical traditionalist Catholic RTC ideology. What is the government's business? This first footnote is just like shocking to me. So they have these acronyms. RTCs are typically characterized by the rejection of the Second Vatican Council, Vatican II, as a valid church council, disdain for most of the popes elected since Vatican II, particularly Pope Francis and Pope John Paul II, and frequent adherence to anti-immigration, anti-LGBTQ ideology. Radical traditional Catholics impose a small minority of overall Roman Catholic adherents and are separate and distinct from traditionalist Catholics who prefer the traditional Latin Mass. I mean, this is the government writing about, people and their faith. It's unbelievable. Even following along on this is just shocking. And that's the FBI under Merrick Garland. Yeah, it's another one of my favorites. In 2019, we sued Dana Nessel, the Attorney General. The American Freedom Law Center has long been identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate organization. So that's kind of a badge of honor in some respects, but it does make it difficult. You got banks who don't want to deal with you. You've got even they have this Amazon Smiles, right? It's like a way you can donate to charities. If you're on the SPLC hate list, you're not listed. So even though it's a badge of honor for the SPLC to designate us as that, because that must mean we're doing something good. The reality is that it does have repercussions. Right, it does hurt us. It hurts us financially. We've lost clients because as soon as somebody hires us to help them out, the news will be, oh, and the Southern Poverty Law Center, designated hate group, American Freedom Law Center. So this has an impact. Well, Dana Nessel started when she became the Attorney General, started this hate crimes unit, and she pledged when she announced this with great fanfare, the hate crimes unit, to go after all those organizations identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center as hate groups and hate organizations, specifically identifying those on the east of US 23, Ann Arbor area, which is exactly where we are. Right? So we sued her. And we sued her in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Michigan. Judge Maloney was assigned to the case. He's generally considered a conservative judge. They moved to dismiss, which is always the first step in most civil litigation. And he wrote a great opinion and ruled in our favor on every one of the issues. So about 2 years later, took to get discovery, and we have cross motions for summary judgment. And it's been sitting in his lap now for 2 years. I'm waiting for a final decision on this, but I'm hoping it comes down soon. So pray Judge Maloney gets moving here. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw the news. I also filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Prop 3 on November 8th. Years a day. On behalf of Right to Life Michigan and 15 other plaintiffs have been working on that since February. But it got assigned to Judge Maloney. So we'll see how it goes. It's a roll of the dice every time with what judge you're going to get. It's kind of a sad state of affairs, right? When you can almost predetermine an outcome depending on what judge it was assigned to. So much for blind justice, but we do our best. This is a lawsuit that I just recently filed. How many here know Monica Miller? She's a hardcore pro-life activist all her life. She's terrific. She heads up an organization, the Red Rose Rescue. Well, the New York Attorney General, probably know her name, Patricia James. Yeah, another winner there. Yeah, she filed a civil rights lawsuit against Red Rose Rescue and several of the rescuers in federal court in New York, and she had this press conference with great fanfare. The background was all, abortion is, I'm going to kill myself up here on this court. Abortion's medical care, and she had, Planned Parenthood there and everybody, and she was seeking a 30-foot injunction. I mean, it was really just a show lawsuit. Well, nobody from Red Rose Rescue, and I've represented Red Rose Rescue in multiple trials here in Michigan. They're very peaceful. They don't do the lock and block like the face file. They specifically avoid doing that. So she sued them under face, even though that's not what they do. But during her press conference, she described these rescuers as terrorists, and she specifically said that Red Rose Rescue was a terrorist organization. So we sued her. And that case is pending in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of New York. So this is, you know, we got to push back against these politicians. They use these taglines for a reason, right? They try to marginalize people. Anybody's like, oh, I don't want to donate to Red Rose Rescue. I don't want to be involved or implicated with terrorists and terrorist organization. It's all part of their, part of their grand scheme. Michigan electors. As you know, here we have in this state Dana Nessel going after the GOP electors who are trying to prepare be an alternate slate of electors for the case in case some of these the many lawsuits that were filed that there was any success. I'm going to talk about one that I was involved in and how close it came to having success. But again, the process is the punishment. So you have Dana Nessel suing these, not suing, but indicting 16 of these Michigan electors, just to put the fear in anybody who thinks, I want to get involved in politics, or I want to help out with the, with these elections, these campaigns. But only that, the same 16 electors got sued civilly in state court with these bogus claims, claim for declaratory relief, conversion, false light, and conspiracy. I mean, they're frivolous claims. And I know because I'm involved in that case. I'm actually representing Marion in that civil lawsuit. We have a hearing on Friday because they want to take depositions, and we're trying to stop discovery because they get this ongoing criminal case. So they have a right against self-incrimination under the Michigan Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. Right, so we're filing a motion for summary disposition. This thing is it's bogus on its face. This thing is a frivolous lawsuit. So hopefully we get that motion to dismiss filed relatively soon in that case. I want to we've all seen in the news everything that Donald Trump's going through, and it's just again, it's all the process is the punishment. Look at that bogus fraud trial that's going on in New York with President Trump. You've got the documents, and they turn a blind eye to what the Biden administration is doing with all the documents they found in his garage and elsewhere. It's just, you can't make this up. But I want to, a couple of points I want to make, just kind of wrap it up here. Moving along, don't want to keep people too late and hopefully get some more questions on all this. Undoubtedly the 2020 general election was quite contentious, but so are most general elections, right? Every one of in my lifetime, we certainly know that, Al Gore repeatedly claimed the election in 2000 was stolen by George Bush, right? Saw it on video. We've all seen it. We all have seen Hillary Clinton continue to claim that the election in 2016 was stolen by Donald Trump. But not until now has a political party, in this case the Democratic Party, sought to weaponize the courts and the legal process to punish those who questioned a general election. So you have these criminal and civil lawsuits are all part of it. It's nothing more, in my view, than an use of the court systems to punish political opponents. And unfortunately, it's establishing a dangerous precedent. Right? It's unclear how this is going to turn out. And typically, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I hate to see how politics is rough and tumble, but I fear how this is gonna work itself out. Right? We're becoming a banana republic in so many ways. Should the Republicans prevail in this next election, God willing, and I've heard President Trump say, "Look, I'm going to come after you." Right? This is I think establishing a very, very dangerous precedent. But as they said in Rambo, you drew the first blood. Right? We saw it with Harry Reid when he did the nuclear option for the judicial appointments. Well, that blew up in their face in a pretty big way. Gave us the Supreme Court. So I don't know. We are in very, very dangerous times in terms of how the left is weaponizing the power of government, particularly law enforcement. January 6th is another perfect example. And compared to how they treat Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and everything that they've done, and they turn a blind eye to that, or Letitia James going after these peaceful pro-lifers in New York, and yet New York is it's pre Rudy Giuliani type up there, and the crime on the streets is horrific. But one of the things I want to, and I just want to wrap this up. We keep hearing from the Democrats about how apparently this 2020 election was so pristine, right? It's no evidence, no evidence. I kept hearing that time and time again. Just here in Michigan, right? We know Donald Trump lost by approximately about 154,000 votes. It's a fraction of the votes when you consider the fact that there were more than 3 million absentee ballots. I think that's the most in Michigan history. And the other thing that people probably don't realize or fail to recognize, Secretary of State Benson's guidance on how these ballots should be treated, she directed the clerks to, quote, presume that signatures are valid. That was her guidance on those 3 million ballots that was followed by all this, all the different precincts. That's not what the law is. It's just the opposite. Because absentee ballots are notoriously subject to fraud. They just are. There's time and time again. It's case after case. And this is what the Michigan court said. The standards issued by Defendant Benson on October 6, 2020, with respect to the signature matching requirements amounted to a rule that should have been promulgated in accordance with the APA, the Administrative Procedures Act. In absence of compliance with the APA, the rule is invalid. Well, that didn't come down until March of 2021. So sorry, can't do anything about it. They have built in federal law, they have a safe harbor provision, and I think in that year it was December 8th. All the litigation had to be wrapped up by December 8th. And I can tell you, as an attorney, as a litigator, boy, you got to work around the clock to put things together. Well, I worked with a group. We filed a petition for a extraordinary writ to the Michigan Supreme Court to just asking for an audit of the election, as it is your right under the Michigan Constitution. One of the things I didn't realize until I got involved in this election litigation is we amended the state constitution to allow absentee ballots for any reason. I voted every election. I don't know how that one slipped past the goalie, but included there was the supposed right for an audit. But you can't seem to get the audit, and that was one of the main things that we were trying to get when we filed this petition. We filed it at 3 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning in the Michigan Supreme Court, and the Benson boy fought that. Both seriously, she fought that so hard, right? If you're going to be above board, then why don't you allow for an independent audit of this election? Well, they fought it, and so we ended up losing in the Michigan Supreme Court, but we lost 4-3. Right? It's hardly, a frivolous lawsuit or whatever other tag thing you want to name. And this is what Justice Viviano said in his dissent. For the second time in recent weeks, individuals involved in last month's election have asked this court to order an audit of the election under the Michigan Constitution, Article 2, Section 4. As in that case, petitioners here allege that election officials engaged in fraudulent and improper conduct in administering the election. In support of these claims, petitioners have submitted hundreds of pages of affidavits and expert reports detailing the alleged improprieties. We submitted, and we had to work quick from the election until Thanksgiving Day, putting all this together, putting all the evidence together, getting the expert declarations, and we ended up losing 4-3 in the Michigan Supreme Court. Every time I hear somebody say, "Oh, there's no evidence, no evidence, no evidence," I bristle, because there was, and this is before even being able to take discovery. This is just information that we could get through open sources, people coming forward, doing interviews, and the likes. So there's something went awry on 2020. Now, am I an election denier? No, the election took place. I didn't deny the election took place. I don't deny that President Biden's in the White House. But I can tell you there was a lot of election malfeasance that took place during that 2020 election that has to be cleaned up. And as long as we keep having these mail-in ballots, we're going to have problems. And we got to play that same game. This was a commission on federal election reform. It was a bipartisan commission chaired by former President Jimmy Carter and former Secretary of State James Baker, and has been cited extensively by the U.S. Supreme Court over the years. It was in 2005. They made the point the electoral system cannot inspire public confidence if no safeguards exist to deter or detect fraud, or to confirm the identity of voters. And according to the Baker report, mail-in voting is, quote, the largest source of potential voter fraud. And case after case, I got about 6 of them listed here, where they make the point that if you're going to have voter fraud, it's going to be through the mail-in ballots. And we've just opened the floodgate to that. Think about 154,000 votes. It's pretty small. It's only a fraction of the 3 million absentee ballots. And think if the guidance had been different, how that number might have been affected. I mean, it's just it's unfortunate, but we gotta, we have to get out there and vote. We gotta vote early. We gotta get our neighbors, everybody else involved in this in the election, because we gotta get these people like the Dana Nessels, the Letitia James, these people, the Merrick Garlands, who want to weaponize government and attack private citizens and violate our fundamental rights. We got to get these people out of here. We got to turn this all around, and God willing, we will. I'll wrap it up there. Thank you.